breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got a tremendous podcast for you, as in segment number 2, we're going to be joined by one of our good friends, Danny Burke, who does absolutely tremendous work here at VSiN. You're going to be able to catch him all weekend long doing a lot of our live betting shows. And for those of you guys that love hockey, because I don't do a very good job of handicapping hockey at all. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I am not good as a hockey handicapper, but what I do love about hockey is taking in all this great Stanley Cup playoff action. Danny does a great job of being able to not just watch it, but being able to evaluate it. But we've got him on here to talk some baseball. We're going to be talking about the Chicago teams, the Cubs, the White Sox, what he's made out of these surprise NL Central teams thus far this season, and so much more. So we're going to have a great chat with Danny in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @Unit_D1. Keep in mind, letters ZM. Name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on very late Thursday into super early Friday. So let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
I had to do this podcast prior to all the late Thursday games being wrapped up. Unfortunately, the DK Nation write-up pick on Thursday did not hit. I had the under in Mets versus Giants, and I failed to recognize that Sean Manaea is completely washed at this point, 9-4. The Mets were able to get it done as Manaea gave up 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings, all coming in the 4th inning, as the Mets in that inning got a pair of home runs, as Pete Alonso got number 9 of the season in terms of his home runs. That at the time was the big league lead, and then Eduardo Escobar, his second of the campaign. Jeff McNeil, a little bit later, he was able to get his first home run of the season, as coming in after that was the man that had to clean up 5 1/3 innings, and Tristan Beck. He gave up that home run, 4 runs in total. He just had to wear it. For the Giants, they were able to get a pair of home runs off of Kodai Senga as well. Lamonte Wade Jr. is second of the campaign, and you had number 3 of the campaign for young catcher in Blake Sabol. As for Senga, not necessarily a great start for him either. Gives up those 2 home runs, 4 runs in total over the course of 5 innings. But from there, John Curtis with 2 S's, Drew Smith, Jeff Brigham, and Brooks Raley all lend a scoreless inning. And then you did see the San Diego Padres get a 7-5 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Fernando Tatis Jr. in his first game back, terrible, 0-5 at the plate. He struck out twice, but got a pair of home runs out of Xander Bogaerts, his 5th of the campaign, and Matt Carpenter, his second. Those both come off of Ryan Nelson, who gives up 5 runs in 5 innings. Bullpen from there wasn't bad. Scott McGill, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Anthony Machevich, pair of outs out of the bullpen. Jose Ruiz, a scoreless inning, and Kyle Nelson gives up 2 runs, both of which were unearned. Nick Ahmed's fielding error was rather costly on that one. And for the San Diego Padres, you had Michael Wacha go waka 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 dying Pac-Man voice. 5 runs surrendered in 4 innings, but bullpen had its back. Tim Hills, Steven Wilson, Josh Hader all lend a scoreless inning. Brett Honeywell, 2 scoreless innings. Now on Thursday, the Dodgers were able to get it done thanks to a James Outman grand slam. 6-2. They took down the Cubs as Outman. He had home runs number 4 and 5 of the campaign. Javier Assad was a surprise starter in this one. He gave up one of those home runs, giving up 2 runs over the course of 3 innings. It was pretty much a piecemeal bullpen game, as from there, Edber Alzolay, Michael Rucker, Brad Boxberger all lend a scoreless inning, and Brandon Hughes 2 scoreless innings, but Michael Fulmer gives up 4 runs while getting just 1 out, including that grand slam. And for the Cubs, they weren't able to get a lot of offense going. You had the former Dodger and Cody Bellinger get his 4th home run season off of Michael Grove, and Grove only lasted 3 innings, giving up 2 runs, but the bullpen of the Dodgers, how about them? 6 scoreless innings. Justin Brule, Yancy Almonte, Caleb Ferguson, Bruce Graterol, all with a scoreless inning, and Phil Bickford, 2 scoreless innings. And then turn it forward to Friday, and the Cubs won by a count of 13-0 as they put up a 7th spot in the 5th inning, as this legitimately had a chance to be a perfect game if Yan Gomes doesn't screw up the infield single. That was the lone hit of the game for the LA Dodgers. You would see a pair of walks after the hit was allowed, but those were both from the reliever in Jeremiah Estrada, as Drew Smyly was perfect through 7 innings, and then you have that infield single dribbler that broke it up, as it was David Peralta, the pinch hitter, that got that. Just nothing doing for the Dodgers on this day, and for Julio Urias, he got banged around. 5 runs surrendered in 3 1/3 innings, as going deep off of him, Trey Boom Boom Mancini, second home run of the campaign. Cody Bellinger, 5th home run of the season. Nico Horner was able to get his first home run of the season off of Andre 3000 Jackson. Patrick Wisdom, his 9th off of Jake Reed, as Reed, he gives up 6 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Jackson gives up 2 runs in 3 innings, and got to the point where they pitched Luke Williams, the backup shortstop. He was able to end a scoreless inning. The Pittsburgh Pirates continue their winning ways. They are now 14-7. They take down the Cincinnati Reds, this by a count of 4-2, as for Pittsburgh, Mitch Keller, really good start. Gave up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Bullpen from there, David Bednar, Colin Holderman, Robert Stevenson were all able to lend a scoreless inning. And for the Pirates, just enough in terms of the offense. 2 of 9 is what they went with men in scoring position. And for Graham Ashcraft, not a terrible start here for the Reds. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. It was the bullpen and the fielding that hurt them. Jose Barrero had a fielding error that causes Derek Law to give up an unearned run in his inning of work as he takes the L. Ian Gabot gives up a run while getting 2 outs out of the bullpen. And Revier St. Martin, he gets 4 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. But the Reds really have been having a tough time with their offense. If I haven't said it on this podcast already, spoiler, I have said it on this podcast already. The White Sox bullpen is terrible. The Rays walk it off by a count of 8-7 as the Rays entered into the bottom of the 9th inning down by 2 runs, and they come back as the Chicago White Sox yak this one away. Michael Kopech was not sharp in this one. He gave up 4 runs in the first inning, but was able to complete 5, giving up 5 runs along the way for the Tampa Bay Rays. They did get a home run off of him via Harold Ramirez, 4th home run of the season. And then in the 9th inning, it was Reynaldo Lopez, who should not be closing games, that gave out a pair of home runs. Christian Bethancourt, his 4th of the season. Brendan Lau, his 6th, as Lopez does not get a single out, gives up those 2 home runs, 3 runs in total after Jimmy Lambert, Aaron Bummer, Kendall Graveman all did their part, throwing a scoreless inning. And for once, you have Eloy Jimenez out there on the field. He was able to get his first home run in the campaign as the Rays. They trotted out there Calvin Fotcher for an open. He gave up 3 runs in 2 innings. Jalen Beeks gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning before you had Cooper Criswell give up that home run to Jimenez, giving up 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. And then you had 2 scoreless innings from Kevin Kelly. You had a scoreless inning from Colin Boucher and a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Garrett Clevenger, as the Rays are now 17-3, and the Chicago White Sox, they go to 7-13. Blue Jays are able to take it to the New York Yankees, which the Yankees, by the way, have really been a solid team to the under thus far this season. They have played just 7 of their 20 games to the over. Only the Miami Marlins have a higher under rate thus far. 6-1 the final. The Blue Jays able to get it done. Yusei Kikuchi completely locked down the Yankees, giving up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. That one was via a solo home run, as it was home run number 1 of the season for Oswaldo Cabrera. And Domingo Herman, apparently he didn't have his foreign substance out, as he gives up a pair of bombs, 4 runs in total over the course of 6 innings. Brandon Belt, his first home run as a Toronto Blue Jay. Vlad Guerrero Jr., his 4th, and then Yimi Garcia, Trevor Richards, Eric Swanson, they were able to lend a scoreless inning, as the Yankees had Albert Abreu give up 2 runs in 2 innings, and Greg Weisert lend a scoreless inning. The Baltimore Orioles get a 1-run win over the Detroit Tigers, 2-1 the final, as for Detroit, they got a really good start out of Michael Lorenzen, 5 scoreless innings. From there, Chasen Shreve, a scoreless inning. You got 4 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless from Tyler Holton. You did have Jose Cicierno give up a solo run in an inning, but it was Jason Foley who in the 9th inning yacked this one away, giving up the winning run without giving a single out, as Tyler Wells pitched very well for the Baltimore Orioles. 7 scoreless innings. Brian Baker, he was able to go an inning scoreless out of the bullpen, and things did get interesting with the Tigers' lone run of the game coming off of Felix Bautista in the 9th, but Austin the Say's kid, he had his 4th home run season a little bit earlier on, and the Orioles, they're able to get this one to the window. The Phillies get to the window on the Rockies by a count of 4-3, as for Colorado, they scored 3 runs in the first, and they would not score the rest of the game, as young Noah Davis, not a terrible start. 2 runs, one of which was surrendered in 4 2/3 innings. From there, Brent Suter, 4 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless, but then Dinelson Lamet allows a home run in his inning of work going deep for the Phillies. Kyle Schwarber, 5th home run season. Then he had a run given up by Brad Hand in the 8th inning that caused the team. As for the Philadelphia Phillies, Aaron Nola was not super early on, giving up those 3 runs, but settled down from there, giving up 3 runs in 7 innings before Sir Anthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado were both able to end a scoreless inning, as Ryan McMahon took Aaron Nola deep, his 4th home run of the campaign. He did see the Marylands versus Guardians game get rained out. So that is going to be one that we are going to be seeing a double dip for on Saturday. And we do have quite a few games that are still pending as I do this. Not going to be able to give you too much on the West Coast games, but it is Red Sox currently leading the Brewers going into the 7th inning by a count of 4-3 as Nick Pivetta gives up 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings with the Brewers. They continue to stay hot at the plate with Rowdy Tellez being able to get his 6th home run season, but Freddie Peralta did give up 4 runs over the course of 5 2/3 innings, including a bomb as Boston. They've been doing a very solid job with their bats all season long. Alex Verdugo, he was able to get his 3rd home run of the season, so we shall see how that one shakes out. And then the DK Nation write-up. This one was brutal. The Atlanta Braves were up 3 runs going into the 7th inning, and out of my write-ups, in the last 10 days, I have had 3 different money lines in which the team that I took on the money line was up 2+ runs going into the 7th inning and lost 6-4 the final. As for the Houston Astros, they were unable to get to Bryce Elder. Elder gives up an unearned run in the 1st inning, and that was it. 6 innings with 1 unearned run from there. Jesse Chavez gives up 3 runs without getting a single out. Dylan Lee, Nick Anderson, they do their part, giving a scoreless inning, but you had from there AJ Minter give up a home run to Yordan Alvarez. His 5th home run of the campaign as Hunter Brown, he got shelled in the 1st inning, giving up 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings. The Braves would not score from there. Phil Maton, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Ryan Stanek, Hector Neris, Ryan Presley, they all lend a scoreless inning, and right now we've got a 4-4 game between the Rangers and the Oakland Athletics as the Rangers scored 4 runs in the 1st inning, and they're on the verge of yakking this one away. We shall see what happens there as JP Sears gave up all those runs in the 1st inning, but now it's 11 punch-outs through 6 innings. Meanwhile, for the Texas Rangers, 55 Shades of John Gray, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, surrendered in his start. As for the Oakland A's, they did get a home run off the bat of Tony Kemp, his 1st of the campaign, and currently the Washington Nationals, as I do this in the 8th inning, up by a count of 3-2 on the Minnesota Twins, and the Nationals actually have good pitching. Trevor Williams gave up just 2 runs over the course of 6 innings in this one. He did give up a home run, going deep. Joey Gallo's 5th home run season. He's returning to form in the Nationals. They're dead last in the league in terms of home runs, but Tyler Mahle did give one up to Joey Meneses' 1st home run season. For Mahle, he allows just 1 run in 6 1/3 innings, but it's been Griffin Jacks who has gotten Jacks up, giving up 2 runs out of the bullpen in his 2/3 of an inning, so we shall see what happens there. And if you're taking a look at Major League Baseball right now, there have been a whole bunch of overs thus far this season, though it's tamed down a little bit. 148 overs to 130 unders thus far this season, but if you take a look at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, unders are starting to come back through. 41 overs, 41 unders. We have seen a few pushes along the way as well, and for run line favorites, they've been able to do a relatively solid job of covering favorites overall. 51 and 33 on the money line over the last 7 days. Just 12 of them have failed to cover the run line, so 39 2+ run wins overall this season. Favorites, they've been able to do a nice job on the money line at 178 and 110 straight up, but we have seen in terms of favorites, 41 of them fail to cover the run line. So something to track and something I will be taking note of here on the Baseball Betting Show. And coming up next, we are going to be talking about the Chicago teams, the NL Central, and what Danny Burke has noticed thus far this baseball season. He does a great job here at VSiN, and he joins me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units returned, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family of Podcasts, and it is great to be joined by our guests as we've got Danny Burke aboard. He does absolutely tremendous work here at VSiN. You're able to catch him a lot on the weekends as he does a lot of our live betting shows on both Saturdays and Sundays. You're able to catch him on Saturdays as well. If you're out in the great state of Illinois on the show Bet on Chicago, you're able to find that at WLSAM 890. And then on top of that, he does an amazing job with our hockey betting podcast here at VSiN as well, which you're able to find wherever you get your podcast. It's appropriately called the Hockey Betting Podcast. And to be able to follow Danny Burke on Twitter, that's at Danny Burke and the number 5 altogether. And it's always great to have you aboard, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, I always appreciate you having me on, Greg. Been enjoying this season so far, especially from my perspective as a Cubs fan. I haven't been able to say that in a little bit, but I know you're feeling even better being a Brewers fan, buddy.
Absolutely. And what have you made out of the NL Central thus far? Because it has been a rough year for the St. Louis Cardinals, which I'm sure that there's a lot of non-Cardinals fans that are crying so many tears about that. But I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they entered into the weekend looking very solid on a 12-7 start. The Chicago Cubs are above 500 entering into the weekend against the Dodgers, and the Milwaukee Brewers have been one of the best teams in all of baseball thus far.
Yeah, a couple things stand out. Pretty much 3 things with those teams exactly that do stand out. And I guess I'll start with the Cubs because I follow them, of course, so closely. You know, when I came on this show a little bit ago, I pretty much told you that this Cubs team was going to be a scrappy bunch, right? We know they accumulated a bunch of what I classified as above average characters on the team. There wasn't one superstar. I know Dansby Swanson's kind of fitting that mold in his own for the Cubs, but they have a bunch of guys who are going to compete day in and day out offensively. And you've seen that. Their offense has been one of the better ones throughout Major League Baseball, both home and away. The thing that still scares you, though, a little bit, Greg, is their pitching. And this was an issue coming into the season. From game to game, you can see that there are going to be some gaps throughout the rotation. Now, Drew Smyly had a pretty good start the other week, but I see that more as an aberration than something that's going to constantly keep up. And they do have some guys in their bullpen. But again, I think once you get into the thick of it, end of June, middle of July, you'll start to see them regress because they're going to get a little bit weary. So they're going to have to add some depth to their pitching if they actually want to be a contender, if their sights are set on the postseason, which it's early, but of course that's going to be their goal, their aspirations, and a path that they can get to. And I said they're going to be competing in the wild card by the time we get to end of August, early September. And that's what, again, they're on path to doing so. So from a fan perspective, of course, hopefully that keeps up. But it's not like I'm ready to invest in this team actually winning a playoff series. I just think they're going to be in the hunt come the end of this season. As for your Brewers, I had 2 futures bets, and one of them was taking their under, and I think I got it 85.5. They've been playing very well. I mean, giving them credit where credit's due. Their offense has come alive where I really thought they were going to be sluggish with their bats. But, Greg, they've impressed me. And I don't know what to think overall of your Brewers. I'll obviously let you speak on that a little bit more so, but right now, I would probably have to classify as playing a little bit over their heads. And yeah, you could say the same thing with the Cubs. I wouldn't disagree with you on that too much. I mean, the Cubs have also benefited from, just getting over a series sweep in the worst team in baseball against the Oakland A's. But the Brewers, I'm curious to see if there is going to be a point where they start to regress. It's just a matter of when. But again, that offense has exceeded my expectations that I had set for them. And with the Cardinals, Greg, this is a squad that everybody pegged as being the top of the NL Central. But I'm not going to fret or anything with St. Louis because, as you know, they always come alive. I mean, they're always going to be in postseason contention toward the end of the season. So it's just a matter of time till they start figuring it out. Offensively, yeah, a little bit slow, but you've seen glimpses. Their issue is always going to be with their pitching. But if their offense can come around enough, that will do enough for them to get by in the regular season. And while Milwaukee regresses, Chicago probably takes a hit in the middle of the summer, that's when St. Louis will start coming alive. So it's just a matter of time before you look at this team and go, when do I invest in a price for them to win the Central? And you could arguably do it now. I wouldn't have an issue with that. I might personally wait a little bit longer, Greg, but St. Louis is going to be fine. Again, their offense will do enough to subside the pitching that may be a tad bit vulnerable. So like St. Louis in the regular season and the Central, they'll be A-OK. Postseason, again, because of their lack of rotational depth, that's a squad that I don't want to invest in going any further than anything I may do in the regular season. But yeah, big ups to the Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers and St. Louis. They got to wake up soon, man, but I think they'll be fine doing just that in probably a month or so.
I do think so as well, and I think that it is interesting to take a look at these early returns in the MLB season because if you compare it to like an NFL slate, for instance, this is about the equivalence of 2 weeks of NFL football. And how much do you want to be relying upon what we've been seeing thus far this season and your priors? Because I do think that we shouldn't be having the Pittsburgh Pirates at sort of the same, shall we say, value that we had on them, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But at the same time, I don't think that we should be valuing the Pittsburgh Pirates the same way as we would be valuing, say the LA Dodgers if they started out 12-7 as well. I think that it's a very fine balance with what we've seen early on this season.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we had our preconceived notions about the Pirates, and you got to remember what their schedules looked like at the beginning of the year. A lot of these teams still working out those kinks, and some teams could get maybe not lucky, but just the benefit of a lot of teams working out their issues. And Pittsburgh's been one of those squads, and they've been doing it banged up and missing O'Neal, Cruz, and some other pieces to their offense. So that's why you're probably and inevitably going to see some regression out of Pittsburgh. And not really a team, honestly, Greg, that I've gotten involved with on a game-to-game basis, especially not from a side of wanting to back them. If I've had any interest, it's just been fading them. I don't have an issue with them winning because then maybe it gives us an opportunity to get a better price than we would normally get trying to fade Pittsburgh. But yeah, they'll probably see some regression. You mentioned the Dodgers not been performing as well as we've been accustomed to. Again, a team you're certainly not going to push the panic button on because, well, the Rockies are abysmal. The Giants, Logan Webb's not pitching anywhere near as good as I thought he would. They have no offense either. The Padres will figure it out, but luckily they've slacked too. And the Diamondbacks are another young team that's gotten a lot of energy and a big boost at the beginning of the year. They've had a big benefit from the new rules. They take a lot of stolen bases. They play more aggressively, and they don't have that bad of a pitching staff. So Arizona's kind of a team you look at to betting a game-to-game basis and seeing some good value and some underdog roles. But in terms of the division, Greg, it's going to be a battle between the Dodgers and the Padres. And I think I'd still rather invest in the San Diego Padres because I had them pegged like many people. Seeing how dominant that roster is not one of the best in baseball, but of course the best, in my opinion, in the NL West. I'm not the biggest fan of the Dodgers heading into this year. Yeah, they still got a lot of studs in that rotation, but the pitching I don't think is going to be as top tier. The bullpen's slowly starting to figure it out, but I just think the Padres have more depth and more stardom, and that would be the team I'd be looking to come out of the West. And look, the Dodgers still probably going to make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they won't, but if we're looking for anything in the NL West specifically, it's got to go Padres, Dodgers, and Diamondbacks for me, despite what the standings are showing at the end of April.
And I think that evaluating the Padres is so interesting as well. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Danny Burke, who does great work over at VSiN, because this is a very interesting series that they've got with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to be seeing some fun games going on this weekend, but with the Padres, do you think their value could be coming a little bit more towards the back half of the season? Because these are going to be the first few games for Fernando Tatis Jr., and I just have a tough time believing that he's going to look like his normal self first few games coming back, because not only did he have the suspension, not only did he get injured, and this is going to be the first time that he's played since 2021 when he was a bit banged up that season as well. And for the Padres, I think the biggest key for them is their offense, because if there is someone that's not living up to the big contract that they signed, it is Juan Soto, and I've got a few issues there with the Padres, and I do think that he's going to be able to figure it out, but I think it could take some time for Soto to be able to get right at the plate.
That's got to be frustrating for sure. You know, I was tuning into a couple of games this past week, and I didn't even notice how much he's been slacking, but luckily for them, again, they have so much star power in that lineup that they've been able to get by well enough and not dig themselves too deep of a hole early on. And we see this all the time where you get a guy who signs a big contract and you're surrounded by some other, like I remember Stanton with the Yankees was getting booed constantly because he wasn't living up to it. And well, he's doing pretty darn good right now. And I'm not saying maybe Juan Soto's going to have that type of push forward immediately. But again, it's such a long season. Baseball is such a hard sport to be successful at as a hitter. These rules will come around to benefit him. His bat will come around to benefit him. Once the weather starts consistently getting better too, and they're playing away from San Diego, he'll still be fine. So again, it's one of those things where it's only a matter of time, but it does cause some concern right away because, again, you're paying him a lump sum of money. So it's like a ticking clock. When is this guy going to figure it out? But again, one of those things where you don't want to worry too much because we haven't even made it out of April.
Absolutely. And we are always going to see stars, no matter how big or small, have their funks as well. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Danny Burke, who does amazing work over here at VSiN. And Danny, I've got to get your thoughts on the other Chicago team, and that's the White Sox, because I think that there are big-time concerns with this team. And the concerns I've got, they are currently all in the bullpen. They enter into the weekend dead last in terms of bullpen ERA. What have you made out of this team? Because they've got Dylan Cease, who has been tremendous to start out the year. Mike Clevenger has been a little bit up and down, but I think that he's starting to look a little bit more like the Mike Clevenger of old. But until this bullpen gets things figured out, I just have a tough time thinking that the White Sox are going to be any sort of factor in the American League.
Greg, I look at the White Sox and just being familiar enough with the team and seeing how their pitchers play, I feel like I have a really good read on this team compared to almost any team in Major League Baseball. Again, like it's become a squad where you can only fully trust them when Dylan Cease is pitching. And even then, as you alluded to, their bullpen could easily shoot themselves in the foot and make it all come crashing down. And offensively, you thought, all right, because they have a competent manager now and not Tony La Russa, that they can get a good lineup day in and day out. But they can't evade the injuries. Yohan Moncada's battling one every other day. Tim Anderson out for several weeks. Jimenez got injured right away, although he is back in the lineup. Luis Robert's been a stud, don't get me wrong, but they need their leadoff guy, TA, there. He's really the reason that they can go. And he's a clutch hitter in situations where runners in scoring position are present. He's going to drive that run in. So when he's not there at the top of the order, not only does it hurt him there, but of course it hurts him throughout the infield. They've been kind of a sloppy defense, and you can tell when the lineup is put out there and you're like, why is the market going to this inferior team? Well, it's not only because you don't trust the bullpen, it's not only because they have injuries, but because they're a little bit sloppy defensively. So the White Sox with Cease, yeah, that's when you look to bank on them. But Lance Lynn, he's kind of lost an edge. You look at Lucas Giolito, a guy I've been down on for the past several years. Yes, I know he had a great outing the other day, but he's almost like a Kyle Hendricks, not to that extreme, Greg, but to the point where it's like, yeah, 1 out of every 3 or 4, he'll give you a quality start. But the other games, you got to be looking to fade away or stay away with Giolito. And also, as you mentioned, Clevenger, good outing against the Astros. All right, you get your hopes up, right? Well, then he kind of falls back down to earth a little bit. So especially until they get Tim Anderson back and some guys back in the bullpen like Hendricks and Kelly, you can't trust this White Sox team unless it's Dylan Cease pitching. So I don't think they're making the playoffs. People here in Chicago naturally are still very high on this team because you have all this star power and you're just waiting for them to put it together. But Greg, they're cursed or something because they can never get out of the way of being injured or just finishing a quality start by a pitcher. There's always a hurdle for them. And it's not a team that I would invest in any capacity, like I said, except if Dylan Cease is pitching on a game-to-game basis. But this is frustrating for all the White Sox fans here in Chicago.
No doubt about it. And for the Chicago White Sox, looking up at the Minnesota Twins right now, who have been one of the best teams with their pitching in all the big leagues as well. As we do have Danny Burke, who does great work at VSiN, joining me on the podcast. And Danny, are there any series/teams that you're going to be watching for this weekend? Because I do think that there are some very intriguing ones. I really want to see how the Brewers are going to be able to put it together against the Boston Red Sox. I saw by question marks with Wade Miley, who's going to be pitching on Saturday against Boston. And, well, Garrett Whitlock in the starting rotation is always a very interesting look. But I also do think that Astros versus Braves is a fascination with the Astros coming into this series 9-10 to start out with. Not what you'd expect to see from the world champion Astros. Meanwhile, the Braves, they just continue to be the Braves. But is there anything that you're going to be watching for this weekend, whether that be a specific player, a specific team, or just a series or two?
You were talking about Chicago teams, and honestly, I'm kind of expecting a regression from the Cubs against the Dodgers when you get some of these lower pitchers like a Wesneski, who was an absolute liability the first 2 games. And then, all right, cool, he had a great outing against the A's. But again, it was the Oakland A's. The Dodgers are going to be a completely different beast. So in those type of situations against those vulnerable Cubs pitchers with a good offense opposing them, that's when you're looking to fade them. White Sox going against the hottest team in baseball, Tampa Bay. The lines are going to be juiced out of control, of course, but that's a series you expect the White Sox to really struggle. And then going a little bit down the line, too, I think one that's been fascinating to keep an eye on is the Cardinals and Mariners, because Seattle, much like St. Louis, Greg, is a team you're waiting to pop off, but they just haven't done it. And I've tried to back Seattle a couple of times, and it hasn't come to fruition. So I'm waiting for this team to start playing like the roster they've developed, much like we're waiting for with St. Louis. So we'll see who gets the better of each other. But that's probably the other series aside from the Chicago teams that I'm really looking to monitor.
I'm going to be looking at that series as well, because with the Seattle Mariners, they won so many one-run games last few seasons as well. And things have not necessarily been so savory on that front, but things are always savory on the front of getting you aboard, Danny, because you provide tremendous insights. You do a tremendous job taking a look at so many things. Baseball, I mentioned it. You do the VSiN Hockey Podcast, which people are able to find wherever they get their podcasts. I know you're very tuned in with the NFL Draft that's going to be going down in a few days as well. Hopefully your guys out there in Chicago are able to get some help as well. So let the good people at home notes all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. So not only the shows Saturdays and Sundays for VSiN Live Bet Saturday and VSiN Live Bet Sunday, but the VSiN Hockey Betting Podcast. So VSiN's NHL expert Andy McNeil and I, now that we are in the postseason, in the thick of it, we've got an episode Monday through Friday, bringing on awesome guests, pro sports bettors. So not only baseball and the draft, like you mentioned on the weekends, Greg, but plenty of hockey coverage throughout the weekend. Always tweet out the links, and you can subscribe to VSiN's Hockey Betting Podcast wherever you get your podcasts available. So an exciting time to be a sports bettor, as you very well know, Greg.
Oh, it absolutely is. We don't have actual NFL games that are going down right now, and sadly, our next college basketball action is going to be taking place in November, but you know what? Lots of playoff action in the NBA and the NHL, the NFL draft, and as we know, baseball all summer long, and Danny does a great job of covering it all. Big thanks to Danny Burke for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Danny Burke aboard. He does amazing work here at VSiN, and for those of you guys that love hockey, he does a great job with the Hockey Betting Podcast. You're able to find that wherever you get your podcasts. If you're tuned into VSiN on Saturday and Sunday, you'll be catching me late nights, but you'll also be catching Danny Burke doing a great job with all of our live betting coverage as well. He is a master of taking a look at so many different things, and it's always great to get a man from the Midwest aboard. A big thanks to Danny for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at gunit_81. We are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, then the Interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So without further ado, let's dive in on this first game of 901-902 on the betting board. It is the LA Dodgers, and they are on the road facing off against the Chicago Cubs. Hayden Wesneski is going to be going for the Cubs, and Dustin May is on the bump for the Dodgers. Most books do not have a total up on this game because, well, with the Wrigley Field win, that very does have a hand to play in regards to how these totals are set. The lone book that I'm seeing has a total of 9, with the over and the under both at -110. Meanwhile, if you're looking at a money line, the Dodgers are between -135, -140, and we're between +120 and +128 is the price on the Cubs. And with the Chicago Cubs, I did set them as a +138 underdog, so this is a scenario where at a -135, like I'm seeing at most books right now, I am going to be willing to take the LA Dodgers. And in terms of my total, I did set it at a 9.2. It is going to be a little bit of a cooler day out in the Chicagoland area. You're expecting temperatures right around about the mid-40s or so, but the wind, it is sort of blowing directionally, so you've got quite a bit of wind going on here, anywhere between 10 and seeing as high as 14 miles per hour. And you got a pair of guys that aren't necessarily super high strikeout guys. Dustin May, he's got really good heat, but he just hasn't been able to get punch-outs ever since coming back from injury. Fewer than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has been able to do a good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. Just 1 home run given up in 24 innings thus far this season. And command has been there as well, right around about 2.5 walks per 9 innings thus far this season. Meanwhile, last year, he did have a little bit of difficulty of that, but he was coming back from injury, so I think that he's getting back to full force. Meanwhile, Wesneski, he has given up 3 home runs in 13 innings. He's gotten 11 punch-outs in 13 innings thus far this season. Last year had quite a bit more success, so I've sort of soured out on him a little bit. I feel like his starts last season might have been a little bit of fool's gold, and it's to go up against a Dodgers team that is number 2 in the big leagues in terms of home runs. You've got Max Muncy, who's been able to supply 8 home runs thus far this season, as we know. Team very nearly got no hit yesterday. If it wasn't for a swinging bunt, they would have been no hit, and that might have actually been a perfect game, but you still have a very formidable lineup here. You've got to feel like Mookie Betts is going to be able to get a little bit more power going, just 2 home runs thus far this season, but still 386 on base. JD Martinez, Freddie Freeman, these are guys that have been there, done that. Both have 3 home runs apiece. Freeman providing a 375 on base, and James Outman .275 average, 5 bombs. He has been incredible. But on the field has been a little bit rough, and for the Chicago Cubs, it's really been all about Patrick Wisdom in terms of power. 9 home runs. He and Pete Alonso entered into Friday night, tied for the lead in terms of home runs in the big leagues, and you've got a lot of guys who are moving the line. Each of your top 5 players in terms of total at-bats for the Chicago Cubs hitting at least a .270, and Wisdom is the only guy in that fold hitting below a .300. Cody Bellinger has found his MVP form. Nico Horner is hitting at .365. Dansby Swanson's hitting at .333, so these guys have all been able to do a tremendous job. Meanwhile, you take a look at what you're going to be able to get on the flip side for the Dodgers bullpen, and it was a bullpen that last year was number 1 in the National League in terms of ERA, with a lot of guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect being able to step up. Yancy Almonte, Caleb Ferguson, Alex Vesia, guys like this being able to do a nice job with sub-3.3 ERAs, but they're dealing with an injury to Evan Phillips, and now they bring in Jake Reed. Andre Jackson has not been good in the bullpen, and for the Cubs, they leave a little bit of something to be desired with the bullpen. Michael Rucker, along with someone like a Brandon Hughes, these guys are becoming a little bit more trustworthy. I do like the fact that they got Brad Boxberger and Michael Fulmer in the offseason, but when you're relying upon someone like Jeremiah Estrada, that's not necessarily a place where you do want to be. So I do think that both of these offenses are going to be able to have some success. Semi-total at 9.2, so if we do get this 9, I'm going to be taking a look at the over with Wisniewski. I feel like his numbers were a little bit out of whack last season. We have seen some regression with him this season, and I do think that that is going to be continuing. I'm going to lay the -135 I'm seeing right now on the Dodgers, set them at a -138, and with regards to the total, 9 or less, going to be looking at an over 9.5 or higher to the under 903, 904 on the betting board. The New York Mets at the road face off against the San Francisco Giants. Logan Webb is going to be going for the Giants, and David Peterson, great name, is on the bump for the Mets. The total on this game is 8.5. The over is -115. The under is -105 with the Mets. They are anywhere between even money and +106. Meanwhile, they're between -113 to -120 is your number on the Giants. And with the Giants, I set them at a -134, so I am going to be willing to lay it. It has been a very rough start to the season for Logan Webb, but I do think that he is going to be able to get online and goes up against someone in David Peterson, who for one has an absolutely tremendous name, but for David Peterson, does a good job of being able to get swings and misses. North of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings last season, 22 punch-outs and 20 2/3 innings thus far this season, but walks have always been a factor for him. About 3.5 walks per 9 innings last 2 seasons, and for Logan Webb, he has always had his struggles on the road. 2 years ago, had a sub-2 ERA at home, on the road at a north of 4 ERA, and thus far this season, the team is 0-4 in his starts, but 3 of those starts came at home. The other start came against the Dodgers, and he has been consistent as Logan Webb has been the victim of giving up approximately 4 runs in each out of his 4 starts thus far this season, though 3 of those runs in total have been unearned. And for Logan Webb, strikeout numbers are actually quite up for him. He's been able to get a little bit north of 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. Big problem with him is that he is backed up by one of the worst bullpens in the big leagues. For the San Francisco Giants, out of your 30 MLB teams, they currently rank 26th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. For the New York Mets, even though Edwin Diaz is out of the fold for the season, it has been a bullpen that has been able to find a way to be able to cobble things together. They entered it in Friday night, 10th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. David Robertson, along with Brooks Braley, have been good pickups for this team. You've been able to get Denny Reyes to be able to give you some good innings as well. And for the New York Mets, they've got a guy by the name of Pete Alonso, and he knows how to hit the baseball. Entered into Friday night with 9 home runs, tied for the big league lead. Now, they need other guys to be able to pick it up. They were entering into Friday hitting just 234 as a collective. That's a bottom 5 mark in the National League. Brandon Nimmo's currently hitting about a 370, but past that, got a lot of struggling bats at the bottom of the fold. Starling Marte, Mark Hanna, the entire catcher spot for this team. Daniel Vogelbach, all guys hitting a 225 or lower. Eduardo Escobar hitting a $145, though he did hit a home run Thursday night to be able to pick things up. Meanwhile, for the San Francisco Giants, it's just a team that has those good platooning splits, as they're probably not going to have anyone hit for really north of, I would say, about 27, 28 home runs this year, but won't be surprised if they have 7+ guys with north of 20 home runs, as going into Friday night, you had a pair of guys in J.D. Davis, Michael Conforto, both with 4 home runs, along with Mikey Stremski with 4 bombs, David Villar, Therio Estrada, Jock Peterson, Wilmer Flores, bunch of guys with 2 to 3 home runs thus far this season, though. Got a lot of guys that need to pick it up in terms of average. J.D. Davis hitting well above a 300 long Therio Estrada, but you've got guys like a David VR. You're able to throw in there Brandon Crawford, Blake Sobel, all these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Lamonte Wade hitting at 205. That's a little bit rough, and I do think that David Peterson is going to be able to hone in a little bit more with regards to the walks. This is a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Didn't necessarily play that way on Thursday, but it's a little bit hard to crank out the deep ball. We noticed coming into the series that the Giants have been averaging 2 home runs per game on the road and just 1 home run per game at home. So I do think that is going to be able to keep things a little bit more low scoring, and I do think that is going to be of favor to Logan Webb, and I do think that Logan Webb going to be able to lend some depth to take out of the fold this bad Giants bullpen. So I did set the Giants as a minus 134 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Did set my total at 8.2 as well. I think that Peterson going to be the beneficiary of the ballpark dimensions here as well. So looking at the 8.5 under, I made the Giants minus 134 favorites. So looking at them on the money line, 905, 906 on the betting board. It is the Colorado Rockies on the road facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Freeland goes for the Rockies, and Christopher Sanchez makes his season debut for the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Phillies between minus 175 and minus 190 favorites, anywhere between plus 160 and plus 168. Your number on Colorado, 9.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. I needed at least a plus 158 to take a shot on the Rockies, and I thought I was being generous to Christopher Sanchez. I'm going to be willing to take north of a plus 160 with the Rockies. Now the Rockies, they have been absolutely terrible on the road with their offense. Last year, they led the big leagues in runs per game at home. On the road, they were averaging 2.99 runs per game. No other team averaged fewer than 3.4 runs per game, but you know what? They're above their season average from last season in terms of road runs per game in the first two games of this series. I think that they're going to be able to keep it going just because the Philadelphia Phillies have been a hot mess. They're currently in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Jose Alvarado has looked really good for this team, but Sir Anthony Dominguez right around at 10 ERA. Craig Kimbrell, you can't rely upon that guy. Andrew Vasquez has actually been really good, but I don't think that that's going to be long-lasting. Andrew Bellotti has been able to give you nothing whatsoever. And for Christopher Sanchez, what are you going to be able to get out of him? He looked okay in some of his rehab appearances, but this is someone that has made 4 career starts himself. He was mostly a long guy, so I mean, even if he looks good, it's not like he's going to be able to necessarily give you a whole bunch of length. So I've got big-time question marks here with the Philadelphia Phillies. And for the Phillies, I do think that their offense is going to be fine. They entered into yesterday hitting at 279 as a collective. The power numbers a little bit down, 18 home runs in the first 20 games of the season. Kyle Schwarber, 4 home runs, and he's really the lone guy that's not hitting for average, as you did have Alec Boehm, Brandon Marsh, Armando Sosa, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner down for what? Owing at least a 310 going into yesterday. So they've been fine at being able to move the line, not necessarily driving them in, but I just take a look at this Philadelphia Phillies pitching, and it's not good. For the Colorado Rockies, you have had CJ Cron be able to have a relatively good start to the season as well. He's been able to give the team right around 5 home runs. He's hitting at 250. You've got Charlie Blackmon, who's been able to do a rock-solid job for this team, as well as he's typically one of the few guys that's able to hit on the road. He entered into yesterday doing a solid job of being able to bat the ball. You've not necessarily gotten a lot out of Farrell Castro, Lon Rickson Profar, but these guys seem to be picking it up, and Ryan McMahon was able to hit a home run yesterday as well. And for Kyle Freeland, he's got a career ERA that is sub-4 on the road. Meanwhile, it's about 0.8 points higher when he is at home. He's been very good when he has been away from home. You just go back to 2022, 3.08 road ERA. His home runs per 9 rate was right around 0.83. Strikeouts per 9 rate on the road was right around about 7.4, 7.5. He doesn't have dominant stuff, but doesn't necessarily jack up his walks as well, which is big because with the Rockies, they also have a highly questionable bullpen, but now they get Daniel Bard back in the fold. They signed Brad Hand in the offseason. Guys like Jake Bird, Ty Block and company, not necessarily too reliable, but I mean, it's about as reliable as this Phillies bullpen, so very intriguing spot. I do think that Kyle Freeland is going to be able to hold it down, and we do need to account for the fact that the Rockies just can't hit on the road, so I did set my total at an 8.8 here at the 9.5, looking at the under, but at a plus 160 or greater, going to be willing to fire in on the Rockies. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are in Cincinnati. They're under the road to face off against the Pittsburgh Pirates as Rich Hill goes for the Buccos, and you've got Luis Cessa on the bump for the Redlegs, and the Reds are anywhere between plus 125 and plus 132 underdogs, and between minus 138 and minus 150 is your number on Cincinnati. 9 is the total. Unders between minus 110 and minus 120. The over is anywhere between even and minus 110. Needed at least at plus 130 to be able to take a shot on the Redlegs. I set them at a plus 129, but we have gotten there. So I'm going to be taking a look at Luis Cessa and company. This is more or less just a fade of Rich Hill, because I do think that Rich Hill has a better team around him, but at the same time, Mr. Hill, he is up there in years. He is the oldest starting pitcher in the big leagues. I think that is really going to cause him to falter a little bit in this spot. He just is not getting the same amount of strikeouts that he did even like 2 to 3 years ago. He is giving up 3 home runs per 9 innings thus far now. Luis Cessa, 3 bombs given up in 12 innings, and Luis Cessa had a start to forget last time out. got 9 outs against the Philadelphia Phillies and gave up 11 runs. Not too terrific. Has always had north of a 3 walks per 9 innings rate, but not like Rich Hill necessarily has the world's greatest command, 6 walks in 21 innings thus far this season, and both of these teams are backed up by rather interesting bullpens, as for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're currently dealing with Chase Young being out of the fold. Now, I do like Colin Olderman. He had a little bit of a rough go of it on Thursday, but by and large, has been able to do a solid job. Robert Stevenson and David Benner are able to give you some good innings as well, but where you Cincinnati Reds, Alexis Diaz, Fernando Cruz, both of these guys had a sub-2 ERA last season for the Reds. The biggest issue with them is that they don't necessarily have a lot of power bats. Entered into yesterday with just 15 home runs in their first 19 games of the season, though they do have guys that are able to get on base. Spencer Steer, Jonathan India, TJ Friedel, all hitting at least a 300. You've been able to have Tyler Stevenson hit for north of a 300 in the past. Will Myers looks a little bit washed, not going to lie to you, and you do have Joey Vossler giving you 3 home runs, but he has not been able to move the line either. And then for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Andrew McCutchen finding a little bit of the fountain of youth. He's been hitting right around about a 395 in terms of his on base. Brian Reynolds has been incredible, 5 home runs with a 290 batting average, and Jack Swinitsky has been able to give you 5 bombs as well. So this has been incredible to take a look at for the Pirates. Right around a 330 on base as a collective going into yesterday, but I do have my question marks with regards to pitching in this one. Luis Cessa had a really bad outing his last time against the Philadelphia Phillies. I do think that he's going to be able to rebound a little bit more, and this is a pitcher-friendly ballpark out there in Pittsburgh. I do think that both of these teams are going to have a little bit of a tough time moving the line, but I do have a little bit more faith in the Reds with those 2 guys and Cruz and Diaz in the bullpen, even though guys like Derek Law and company, they can be a little bit untrustworthy, but they get Lucas Sims back in the fold, so I did set my total at an 8.8. Or to 9, going to be taking a look at the under, and with the Reds, plus 130 or greater, going to be willing to fire in on them. Here comes the DK Nation write-up pick, 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the Arizona Diamondbacks playing against the San Diego Padres. Joe Musgrove makes his season debut for the Pods, and Merrill Kelly is on the bump for Arizona. 9 to 9.5 is your total on the 9. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 on the 9.5. Under is minus 110 to minus 120. Over is any between even and minus 110. The Padres are between minus 138 and minus 145. Favorites between plus 120 and plus 132. Your number on the Snakes. I feel like the Arizona Diamondbacks should be a slight favorite in this spot, so right up here is going to be on the Diamondbacks money line for Joe Musgrove. He really didn't look too sharp in his 2 rehab appearances. Went 9 1/3 innings, giving up 7 runs, 6 of which were earned. Now, the command was pinpoint. He, I don't think, gave up a walk. He might have given up 1 in 9 1/3 innings, so you know what, the command is there. And last season, Joe Musgrove was solid on the road, being able to post up an ERA of a 3.01, but after the 4th of July, so he made 15 starts. He had an ERA that was hovering right around 2.05 after those starts. Post 4th of July, 3.95 ERA in the final 15 starts. He did not look like himself towards the back half of last season, was giving up right around 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, and the Padres bullpen just has not impressed me too much this year. Josh Hader has impressed me. He looks really good in this bullpen, and Steven Wilson had a sub-3 ERA last season, but past that, guys like Reese Knar, Brent Honeywell, I've got my question marks with these guys. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, I like the fact that they pick up Andrew Chafin, Miguel Castro towards the back half of the bullpen, but you've got someone on the mound in Merrill Kelly that I think is going to mitigate bullpen use because he has been dominant in his career against the San Diego Padres. 13 career starts, 8-2 record, 2.61 ERA, 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for his career, has just been overall better at home. 2.3 walks per 9 innings at home compared to 3.1 on the road, and his ERA falls by 1.05 points at home, more around a 3.35 at home compared to a 4.40 on the road as well. So I think that that's of impact. You've got a Diamondback team that has quite a few guys moving the line. Corbin Carroll's looks like one of the best rookies in all of baseball. 7 stolen bases, hitting right around 260 with 4 home runs entering into yesterday. Now, for the Diamondbacks, not a lot of power thus far. Christian Walker, just 2 home runs, hitting at 222. You got to figure that that's going to be picking up. They've gotten very unexpected production out of Josh Rojas, Gerardo Perdomo, along with Pavin Smith, owing at least a 333. Rojas, solid hitter. You don't expect him to hit a 333, though. And for the Padres, they get back Fernando Tatis Jr., but first game back goes 0-5. It's going to take him a while before he looks like himself, in my humble opinion. And then you've got Juan Soto, who's really struggled. 4 home runs this year, but hitting a $183. Xander Bogaerts has been the real deal, but Manny Machado and company, they've been slow getting out of the gates. For the Padres, 25th in the league in terms of runs per game entering into Friday. 28th in terms of batting average. Just has not been too terrific. I do think that Merrill Kelly has been solid at home, is going to be able to take advantage in Joe Musgrove. I just don't think he's going to look like the Joe Musgrove of old in his first start of the season. I did set my total at 8.6. I do think that Kelly is going to be able to go out there and deliver a good start. I'm going to be looking at the under. My right up here, that is going to be on the Arizona Diamondbacks money line. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays hit the road face-off against the New York Yankees as Garrett Cole is going to be going for the Yankees, and Alek Manoah is going to be on the bum for Toronto, and Toronto is an underdog of anywhere between plus 125 and plus 135. Meanwhile, for the Yankees, it is anywhere between minus 138 and minus 150. 7.5 is the total. Over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And I did set the Yankees minus 166 on the money line. If you're taking a look at the run line, I'd be feeling a little bit more cautious about this, but you're going to be able to get anywhere between about a plus 140 to a plus 142 on the Yankees. I needed at least a plus 130 to be able to fire in, but I do think that you're getting actually a little bit of value with regards to the Yankees run line because you've got Garrett Cole, who's been so masterful all season long. Now, I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression to this because maintaining a 0.95 ERA, not even Bob Gibson could do that back in the day, but he has been absolutely tremendous this year. He's getting a little bit over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and Alek Manoah just looks completely broken. Was not sharp in spring. That has lingered on here. 3+ runs surrendered in 3 out of his 4 starts. The lone start where he really looked good was against the Kansas City Royals, but even in that start he had 4 walks, and he's had 4+ walks in each out of his last 3 starts. Now, the Yankees can be a little bit of a boom or bust lineup, but this is a lineup so that they certainly are able to boom when they are able to do so. You've got Aaron Judge, who does a good job of being able to move the line, 6 home runs, hitting about a 270, entering into yesterday. Anthony Rizzo has really been able to hit for average. He's hitting right around about a 335. They're dealing with an injury to John Carlos Stanton. Where have we heard this before? But you got Gleyber Torres moving the line, 390 on base. You've had Oswaldo Peraza, who's been able to do a nice job of being able to move the line. Oswaldo Cabrera has been able to do a solid job as well. So I like these guys, and Anthony Volpe I think should be able to pick it up. Meanwhile, for Toronto, no issues with this lineup. They and the Tampa Bay Rays are the top 2 teams in terms of batting average entering into yesterday. You had Kevin Kiermaier, Boba Shett, Matt Chapman, along with Vlad Guerrero Jr., all hitting at least a 315 for this team. The home run power has honestly been down for the Blue Jays as well. Guerrero got his 4th home run of the season yesterday, but they entered into yesterday 16th in the league in terms of total home runs. I do think that Garrett Cole, who does have a tendency to give up home runs, is going to give up a deep flyer too. So I did set my total at 8.1. I do think that you've got good value to the over, but I also do think that the Yankees bullpen a little bit more dominant. You've got your question marks with Clay Holmes, but Wandy Peralta, Ron Marinaccio, Albert Abreu, these guys have been tremendous in the bullpen. Meanwhile, Anthony Bass is too focused on popcorn in order to get out, so there's that. You've got Zach Pop, who's got things a popping himself, but Eric Swanson has been solid. Joe Romano is someone I do like, but it's the Yankees bullpen entering into Friday. Number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. I think that Garrett Cole, once a good start, gives up a solo shot or 2. Don't like the current form of Alek Manoah, and I think that the Yankees get to him. So I told it at 8.1, looking at the over. I'm looking at the Yankees getting a plus 140 on the run line, laying a run and a half. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays play host the Chicago White Sox. As Dylan Cease goes for the Sox. Shane McClanahan is on the bum for the Rays, and the Rays are between minus 172 to minus 180 favorites, between plus 155 and plus 164. Your number on the White Sox, 7 is the total, over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. I did set the White Sox as a plus 149 underdog. I needed at least a plus 150 to be able to take a shot on Dylan Cease, but you know what? Getting a plus 150 on Dylan Cease, I'm going to be willing to fire in here. We talked about the White Sox a little bit with our good friend Danny Burke, and I mean, it's just one of these scenarios where the value is just a number that I cannot refuse in this spot because Dylan Cease has been absolutely tremendous. And you take a look at what he was able to do on the road a season ago, and he was actually better away from home than he was at home. 2.35 home ERA, a 2 ERA on the road, giving up 6 home runs in 76 and 2/3 innings. His strikeouts per 9 rate last season was north of 11. He's putting that together once again this season as he's got 29 punch-outs in 22 and a 1/3 innings. Now, the fear that you've got with Dylan Cease, he knocks himself out of the game a little bit too early and lends way to a bullpen that has been absolutely terrible for the Chicago White Sox. Not going to lie to you, as White Sox, they entered into the series in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've just got a lot of guys that aren't living up to their billing, as you've got guys like Kendall Graveman, Jimmy Lambert, Reynaldo Lopez, Aaron Mummer, all had a sub-3.5 ERA last season. That's hurt. Hopefully the good news of Liam Hendricks apparently being cancer-free can give this team a little bit of a lift and he can return to them soon. That's a feel-good story, but in the interim, it's right now hurting this bunch, and they are going up against the Tampa Bay Rays team that they do such a good job of being able to cobble together this bullpen. They rank in the top 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Colin Boucher and all these guys are tremendous, but they are now down a player in Ryan Thompson who had to hit the injured list. As we know, they've had to mix and match with Jeffrey Springs hitting the injured list, so even for a team with all the depth like the Tampa Bay Rays, that's eventually going to take a toll on them. And for the Rays, they entered into Friday number 1 in the league in terms of batting average and home runs. I just don't necessarily think it's sustainable. They were 25th in the league last year in terms of total home runs. Now, I do think that they are certainly improving as a team, as you get Brandon Lau back to the fold. Randy Arozarena, Wander Franco, all these guys, and at least a 275, all these guys giving you a bunch of homers. I do think that these guys are going to be able to pick it up. The big question is, can someone like a Christian Bethancourt, Harold Ramirez is hitting a 367 with 4 home runs, Yandy Diaz has been getting a home run seemingly every game, are they going to be able to maintain? Meanwhile, for the Chicago White Sox, really other than Luis Robert, not a lot of power for this team. Robert has been able to give you 5 home runs. Jake Berger as well. He had 4 home runs in the last 5 games entering into yesterday. Got to give him a little bit of credit where credit is due, but these guys move the line. Andrew Benintendi, Yasmani Grandal, Andrew Vaughn, all entered into yesterday, hanging between about a 269 to a 279. You've got Elvis Andrus, who's starting to pick it up after a rough start to the season. Oscar Colas, he's been able to hit about a 250 as a rookie as well. So I do think that you're going to be able to get a good start out of Dylan Cease. And Shane McClanahan has been absolutely tremendous in his career, but he's actually got a better ERA on the road than at home by about 0.25 points, which I do find to be very fascinating. Now with McClanahan, he's been able to do a nice job with swings and misses, right around 10.5 punch-outs per 9 innings, but he himself, right around 4 walks per 9 innings this season. He did undergo quite a few injuries towards back half of last season. You've got to wonder if any of those are going to be lingering. He's looked sharp thus far, but command seems to be a little bit off. Being able to get north of a plus 150 on the White Sox, I'm going to be willing to fire in here. I do think that both of these starters are going to be able to turn in a really good start as well. I think that we're going to see a bit of regression with this Rays lineup as well. Semi-total at 6.7, looking at the under, and looking at the White Sox at north of a plus 150. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. It is the Oakland A's. They are going to be on the road facing off against the Walker Texas Rangers, as Andrew Heaney is going to be going for the Rangers, and Shintaro Fujinami is going to be going for the A's. And the A's find themselves as a big underdog of anywhere between plus 195 and plus 196. Meanwhile, you've got anywhere between minus 215 and minus 225 on the Rangers. If you're looking at that run line price, you're going to be finding that right around a minus 110. Total on this game is 9. Under is between minus 110 and minus 120. The over, that is between even money and minus 110. And when it comes to the Texas Rangers, I did set them as a favorite of minus 257 on the money line. I was willing to go to a minus 137 on the run line. Shotaro Fujinami just should not be getting starts right now. I think his claim to fame in Japan is that he was a rival of Shohei Ohtani back when he was in high school or something like that, and it shows. 11.37 ERA. He has given up a whopping 16 runs in 12 and 2/3 innings, 9 walks at 10 strikeouts in that time span. He just has not been good. His last start was his best. He went 6 innings, gave up 3 runs, including 2 homers against the New York Mets, so he was able to round into form there. And Andrew Heaney, he does give up some rockets. Even last year, his home runs per 9 rate was a little bit north of 1.5. Thus far this season, the strikeout numbers have been there. He had 10 punch-outs in 5 innings in a start against the Kansas City Royals, but he is someone that is going to give up a little bit of hard contact. Last 2 starts, he's been tremendous. So 1 unearned run surrendered in 10 innings, and you do take a look at this Texas Rangers bullpen, and it has been nothing short of amazing thus far this season. Jonathan Hernandez, Jose Leclerc, Brock Burke, they all had a sub-3 ERA last season. They've been able to duplicate that. Will Smith, Cole Ragans, they have been very welcome additions to the bullpen, as well as Ragans was a little bit more of a starter last season. And for the Oakland A's, 2 of their better relievers in Danny Jimenez, Domingo Acevedo, they're out of the fold. You've got Sam Moll, Zach Jackson, they had a sub-3.5 ERA last season, but when guys like Richard Lovelady need to come in for the terrible Shintaro Fujinami, you're not in a good spot. And for the Oakland A's, they just don't have a lot of thumping in the lineup in general. Now, they do hit about a 250 as a collective on the road. That was entering into Friday compared to more like a 215 at home, just because it's such a pitcher-friendly ballpark out there in Oakland. And I do think that their overall numbers are bogged down by the fact that they do play in Oakland. You do have someone in Brent Rooker giving you 4 home runs, was sitting north of a 300 going into yesterday, and Estadio Ruiz was sitting above 300 as well, but got a lot of dead bats out there. Kevin Smith, Tony Kemp, Mendes Diaz, Jace Peterson. These guys all hitting at 200 or worse. And for the Texas Rangers, they are trying to get by without Corey Seager, but they're doing so just fine. Marcus Semien, 3 home runs thus far this week. He's hitting about a 295. Jonah Hyman's hitting above a 300. Beyond the fold has been a little bit tough with guys like Ezekiel Duran, Bubba Thompson needing to pick it up just a little bit, but Nathaniel Lowe, Adolis Garcia, you know that these guys are going to come around. Garcia, 4 home runs, but hitting just a 206. Lowe has been able to hit about a 250. Josh Young has been one of the best rookies in the big leagues as well. I just think that this Oakland A's team is completely outgunned. This is an A's lineup that is one of the worst in baseball, but they do hit a little bit better on the road, which is why I did set my total at 9.1. Andrew Heaney does leave himself susceptible to the deep ball a little bit, but Fujinami has just been a human pitching machine at this point, set my total at 9.1, so looking at the 9 over, and with the Texas Rangers, was willing to go up to a minus 135 on this run line, so looking at the Rangers run line and the over 917, 918 on the betting board, it is the Baltimore Orioles playing against the Detroit Tigers. Joey Wentz is going to be going for the Tigres, and Kyle Gibson is on the bump for Baltimore, and Baltimore in between minus 165 and minus 175 favorites, and between plus 150 and plus 158. Your number on Detroit, 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 120 and the under is even. And with the Baltimore Orioles, I did set them as a favorite of minus 191. Was willing to lay up to a minus 108 on the run line as well. Currently finding that at a plus number, anywhere between plus 110 and plus 115, and I'm going to be willing to dive in there. Now, if you do have trepidation here, it is because Kyle Gibson, he had about a 5 ERA last season while he was with the Philadelphia Phillies. Was not necessarily too tremendous on that front, but he is going up against Joey Wentz that I'm just not impressed by. He had okay numbers last year. If you look at the raw ERA, was never really great at the minor league level, has never been too much of a swing and miss guy. The command is all over the place, right around 3.5 walks per 9 innings, so I have my big-time question marks there. Now, if you take a look at home and road splits for Joey Wentz, he has given up a career 3 earned runs in 3 starts on the road, but I do think that we're going to see some massive regression there, and he's just not backed up by the same bullpen that he had a season ago. Last year, you had guys like a Gregory Soto, even someone like Andrew Chafin was able to come in and hold down the fort for you. You've still been able to have Jose Cicerno do a solid job in this bullpen. He had a sub-250 ERA last season, but guys like Jason Shreve, Trey Wingenter, they're just not cutting it the way that they did a season ago. And for the Detroit Tigers, this is a bottom 5 lineup in the big leagues. I know that they were able to put together that doubleheader win against the Guardians earlier in the week, but 14 home runs in the first 17 games of the season, hitting at 218 as a collective. This is just not good. You've had Kerry Carpenter move the line, hitting at 260 going into yesterday. Only guy with any at-bats hitting above 250 for the team. Riley Green is able to move the line a little bit, and Spencer Torkelson has never come around with the power, and really the only guy for this team with more than 2 home runs thus far this season is Kerry Carpenter, but he's been starting to get on base a little bit more, but still rather putrid, and especially in comparison to the Orioles. And the Orioles have been one of the big beneficiaries of the new rules. They've been stealing a whole bunch of bases, so has been beneficial as you've got a pair of guys in Jorge Mateo, Cedric Mullins, entered into yesterday with a combined 17 stolen bases, and you've got quite a few guys that can move the line for this team, as Mateo, Adley Rushman, Austin the Say's kid, all above a 300 entering into yesterday. You saw that 9 RBI game earlier in the season from Ryan Mountcastle, 6 home runs going into yesterday. Rushman being able to give you 4 home runs, and for the Orioles, they've fallen off a little bit with their bullpen since last year. You had Cionel Perez, Keegan Aiken have career years last year. You figured that wouldn't be the case once again, but I love Felix Bautista when he's able to do in the bullpen. Mike Baumann, he has been tremendous for the team, and Brian Baker has been able to give you some good innings as well. So I do think that the Orioles are going to be able to hold things down, despite the fact that Kyle Gibson, you have your trepidation with them right around 3 walks per 9 innings. Not a great strikeout guy, 13 punch-outs in 23 2/3 innings. Should be able to do a solid job against a rather putrid Detroit Tigers lineup. This is a scenario where I'm going to be taking the plus money on the run line, because I do think that Baltimore gets to Detroit, and I think that the Tigers get a few runs on Kyle Gibson. Set my total on 9.2, looking at the over and looking at the Orioles run line. 919, 920 on the betting board. It is the Kansas City Royals. They third face-off against the LA Angels. Tyler Anderson is going to be going for the Angels, and Zach Greinke is on the bump for Kansas City. Kansas City is anywhere between plus 155 and plus 165 underdogs. Between minus 175 and minus 185 is your number on the Halos. 9.5 to 9 is your total on the 9. Over is minus 120 to minus 125. Unders between even a plus 105 on the 9.5. Unders minus 120 and the over. It is even, and I did make my total at 8.3. Going to be taking a look at the under. I know that a lot of people like to poop all over the LA Angels bullpen, but since the back half of the 2022 season, since the All-Star break of 2022, it's been a top 10 bullpen in terms of ERA. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be able to sustain, but Matt Moore, he had a sub-2 ERA with the Texas Rangers last season. He's been able to get some good production out of guys like Jose Quiada, Andrew Wantz and company. I feel like the hate goes a little bit too far, and the hate should be directed more towards, the Kansas City Royals bullpen that out of 30 teams going into Friday night, 30th in terms of bullpen ERA. They have been absolutely terrible, and they had to throw out their Taylor Clark, so I have to figure that he's not going to give a lot of length. You could be seeing someone like Carlos Hernandez trying to be able to lend some innings in that sort of ordeal. Now, the good news is bullpen should be mitigated a little bit more as Zach Greinke, probably the guy that you could trust in most, sans Brady Singer in terms of this rotation, but Zach Greinke has very demonstrative home and road splits since the beginning of the 2022 season. Has posted up right around a 5.33 ERA on the road, giving up about a home run and a half per 9 innings on the road compared to at home. Last year he gave up 1 home run in 66 innings at home, so you do want to be taking that into account, but I do think that Tyler Anderson can have a nice go of it here. It's been rough for him. First few starts with the LA Angels, giving up a combined 11 runs in his last 2 starts, but that game against the Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. Now he's going up against the Kansas City Royals team that just has not been able to hit the broadside of a barn, hitting at 208 as a collective. That was dead last going into the night on Friday, as you've got Nate Eaton, MJ Melendez, Hunter Dozier, Jackie Bradley Jr., Michael Massey, Nick Prado, all these guys, they're not just hitting below the nose line, they're hitting below $160 right now. Vinny Pasquantino has been able to hit 270 with 3 home runs. Bobby Witt Jr. at 3 home runs. He's been hitting at 260, but Salvador Perez does not look like himself right now. It's just relatively brutal. Meanwhile, for the LA Angels, you know what you're able to get out of Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Hunter Renfroe hitting at 265 with 4 home runs to begin the season. Taylor Ward has only been able to hit about a 225. I think that he's going to be able to pick it up now. Big for them is the fact that a guy that was looking like an AL Rookie of the Year contender, Logan Hoppe, got a little bit banged up a bit earlier in the week, so that's a little bit of an issue, but I do like this Angels lineup. I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job against Zach Greinke. Greinke used to pitch in LA, so I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a motivational spot. I just think that the Royals not going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. I do think that Tyler Anderson, who's always done a good job with the command, he's going to bear down against a Royals lineup that stinks. So some might tell it at 8.3. Looking at the under with the Angels, was willing to lay up to a minus 105 in terms of their run line. Right now, you're finding that at a plus 105. I set my money line more around a minus 188. Would rather take the plus price on the run line with the Angels because I think that they dominate. So looking there, and the under 921, 922 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins are going to be playing us to the Washington Nationals. Chad Kuhl, hopes to be Mr. Cool for the Nats, and Pablo Lopez is on the bump for the Minnesota Twins, and the Twins big favorites, anywhere between minus 260 to a minus 272. Meanwhile, anywhere between plus 230 and plus 240 is your number on the Washington Nationals. Total on this game, it is 7.5. You're finding the under at minus 115 to minus 120, and the over then is anywhere between even money and minus 105. And with the Minnesota Twins, I did set them on the money line at a minus 246, but if you take a look at the run line, find that right around minus 120 to a minus 125. I was willing to lay up to a minus 130 on the run line. That is where I'm going to be looking. I would be north of a plus 245 to dive in on the Washington Nationals. We have just not gotten there to this point, and Pablo Lopez has looked really good since coming over from the Miami Marlins. And what I thought was very interesting about Pablo Lopez last season is that even though he was pitching in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark for Miami a season ago, he posted up an ERA right around a 4.55 at home compared to a 3 ERA on the road. He has come out and he's been able to lend a lot of length this season. 26 innings across his 4 starts, giving up just 2 home runs, 6 walks in that time span. His strikeout numbers are as good as ever, right around 11 punch-outs per 9 innings, and now he gets to face off against the Washington Nationals team that is dead last in the big leagues in terms of home runs. Jeimer Candelario has 3 of the team's 8 home runs entering into Friday. That's not good. Now, the Nationals actually have guys that are able to move the line. Keibert Ruiz is hitting about a 265. Jeimer Candelario, I mentioned before, 275. Lane Thomas, he's been able to give you about a 330 on base. Victor Robles hitting at 290. These are guys that have been able to put it together. I've always liked Michael Chavis as well. Need a little bit more from guys like CJ Abrams and company, but lineup isn't the worst at being able to get on base. They just can't drive anyone in. Meanwhile, for the Minnesota Twins, they've been a little bit hot and cold with regards to their lineup as well. You've seen quite a few slow starts from the team as Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Jose Miranda, Max Kepler all entered into yesterday, hitting at 226 or lower. Joey Gallo being back. I can't believe I'm saying this. That's big. 4 home runs in his first 26 at-bats. That is going to be going downward in terms of the average of a 269, but I do like what I've seen from him early on this season. But for the Twins, they've been one of the best teams in terms of just raw pitching in the big leagues. This bullpen has been very good with the Orioles, as you've got Ore Lopez along with Yohan Duran, you're able to throw in there Ore Alcala as well. These guys have all been able to do an incredible job of holding down the fort for this team. Meanwhile, you got yourself a bunch in the Washington Nationals that aren't bad with regards to their bullpen. If they're able to get some good starting pitching, they can do something. Hunter Harvey, Carl Edwards Jr., Mason Thompson, Rasmus Ramirez, they all gave you a sub 3.4 ERA last season since the All-Star break of 2022. Top 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Really have my question marks with Chad Kuhl, though, as he had north of a 5 ERA last season with Colorado. I was wondering if that was just because he was at elevation. Well, he's given up 14 runs in 14 and 2/3 innings thus far this season. He's got 9 strikeouts and 8 walks in the time span, giving up 4 home runs. He has just looked all sorts of terrible. I think that the Minnesota Twins just have this Washington Nationals team dominated. I do think that Pablo Lopez going to be able to go out there and fire a good start, but I just don't think that Chad Kuhl holds up his end of the bargain to the under, and I do think that guys like Correa and company going to be able to pick it up with this Minnesota Twins lineup. So I set my total at 7.8, looking at the over, and with the Minnesota Twins, want to lay up to a minus 132 on the run line. 923, 924. It's going to be in conjunction with 931, 932. We've got a surprise double dip here between the Miami Marlins and the Cleveland Guardians. Game number 1 is going to be the guys that we were expecting yesterday. This is actually going to be the late game. 923, 924 right now reads Braxton Garrett for the Miami Marlins and Zach Plesac for the Cleveland Guardians. And then game 2, we should be getting Sandy Alcantara going for the Miami Marlins. Shane Bieber is going to be going for Cleveland. We are subject to a little bit of change, and if we do see any changes, that'll be noted on the spreadsheet at @GNet_81 on Twitter. So want to let you guys know that. But when this was up, we saw Shane Bieber against Sandy Alcantara have a line of the Guardians between minus 132 to a minus 140 with a total of 7 under at minus 115, over at minus 105. And when this was taken off the board before being postponed, Garrett versus Plesac saw the Cleveland Guardians between minus 122 to a minus 130. Meanwhile, about plus 115 to a plus 120 was your number on Miami with a total of 7.5. Over was minus 120 and the under was even. So we're going to go with Garrett versus Plesac first. I set my total at 8.7, so the 7.5, I'm going to be looking at the over. And with the Guardians, if we're able to get back to that minus 125 number, that's a max I'm willing to lay, but I'm going to be willing to lay it with Zach Plesac. He, ever since really the Memorial Day of 2022, so right around May 26th, May 27th, he's had about a 4 ERA. He's been a league average pitcher. Gives up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Gives up a little bit too much of the deep ball, but he's not terrible. Meanwhile, Braxton Garrett has really been able to put it together in terms of command. When he first got called up to the big leagues 2020, 2021, was giving up north of 4 walks per 9 innings. Really addressed that last year with fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. Braxton Garrett, though, he does have his home and road splits, as last year was posting up right around about a 4.40 ERA on the road compared to a 2.63 ERA at home, giving up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, and the Miami Marlins just don't back him up with the same bullpen. As for the Marlins, you're currently dealing with an injury to J.T. Chargois. A.J. Puck has been very good in this bullpen, but Huascar Brazoban has been a little bit shaky this year. Tanner Scott north of a 4 ERA. Matt Barnes not necessarily trustworthy. And for the Cleveland Guardians, James Karinchak has begun to fail this team, and they're dealing with an injury to Angel de los Santos, but it looks like Dos Santos might be good to go for the doubleheader. That would be big for them. Nick Sandlin, Trevor Stephen, Eli Morgan, these are guys that provided a sub 3.3 ERA, and then you've got a well-rested Emmanuel Clase. So I will be looking at the minus 125 on the Guardians and that 7.5 over. And then in terms of Alcantara versus Shane Bieber, the minus 132 that I was seeing before with the Guardians, that'd be the max I'd be willing to lay with them, because Sandy Alcantara has been a little bit shaky thus far. I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up. He was the Cy Young Award winner last season in the National League for a reason. I do think that this is just a little bit of something that shall pass, but I mean, it does have to be a little bit concerning the fact that he's got an ERA that's hovering right around about a 5.84 right now, and he was worse on the road than he was at home a season ago. In 2022, 3.01 road ERA compared to a .164 ERA at home. He was given up on the road, still only about 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, and that's of benefit to him because the Cleveland Guardians, they just have not been able to pop off for any home runs. They're currently dead last in the American League in terms of total home runs, but we've got a lot of guys that last year were able to move the line. Amin Rosario, Jose Ramirez, Andres Jimenez, Steven Kwan, Oscar Gonzalez, Will Brandon, all had at least a 270 for the team last season. They bring in Josh Bell. He's currently only hitting a .91, so that's an issue. So I do think that we're going to see good Sandy Alcantara in this one. I did set my total as a result at 6.4, so even if you go down to a 6.5 in this spot, I would be willing to take a look at the under. But for the Miami Marlins, they are the lowest scoring team in the National League as well. They've had a tough time being able to move the line. You do have Orde Soler, who's been able to give you 5 home runs thus far this season. He's sitting right around about at 270, and you got guys that are able to get on base. Garrett Cooper hitting north of a 300. Luis Arias is sitting above a 400 as well, but the bottom of the fold just has not been able to drive these guys in that get on base at the top. Garrett Hampson, John Birdie, Jesus Sanchez, Gene Segura, Nick Fortes, Jacob Stallings, Aficio Garcia, all at 225 or lower. And for Shane Bieber, strikeout numbers are way down with him, but the command has been very good for him. And you saw that fall off last year. He was only getting about 9 punch-outs per 9 innings this year. 18 strikeouts across 25 innings, but only 5 walks, giving up 1 home run. He's been able to do a good job of being able to keep the ball in play. Now, he has been going up against lesser competition 2 of his last 3 starts against the Oakland A's and the Washington Nationals, but I think that he should be able to turn a nice gem against the Miami Marlins. So, in Bieber versus Alcantara at a minus 133 or less, willing to lay with the Guardians, and as long as you're getting a 6.5 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under here. 925, 926 on the betting board. It is the Boston Red Sox. They have the red face-off against the Milwaukee Brewers, as Wade Miley is hoping to have a party out in Milwaukee for the Brewers, and Garrett Whitlock is on the bump for Boston. Boston is anywhere between even money and plus 106. Meanwhile, with the Milwaukee Brewers, anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120 is your number on them. 8.5 to 9 is the total on the 9. Under is minus 120. The over is even on the 8.5. Over is minus 120 to minus 125. Under is anywhere between even and plus 105. And for the Brew Crew, I did set them as a favorite of minus 143. I'm going to be willing to lay it. Garrett Whitlock, I just feel like is really good in the bullpen, and as a starter, I've got my question marks there. Meanwhile, you've got the soft toster and Wade Miley that is not going to be going out there. He is not going to be giving you like some sort of a ridiculous amount of strikeouts, but I love the way that he's pitched thus far this season, and hey, he has been able to give you 14 strikeouts in 18 innings thus far this season, something that I don't think is going to be sustained, but you know what, I really like the way that he has come out there, and a few years ago, he was actually doing a really good job with the Houston Astros. He had a big fall off, I believe it was towards the end of the 2019 season, and ever since then, just was unable to get healthy, but he's given up very few walks, and he's backed up by a Brewers bullpen that entered into the weekend number 1 in terms of VRA in the National League. Do I think that it's going to sustain? Most likely not, but Peter Strzelski, he's been able to do a nice job, along with Hobie Milner, of holding down the fort. I know that Brewers fans aren't necessarily a fan of Matt Bush, but he closed out that game against the Seattle Mariners. You've got a lot of guys that are doing their part in getting the ball to Devin Williams. Meanwhile, for the Boston Red Sox, they entered into the series 13th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Not sure how. Caleb Ward is not good. Ryan Brazier, Richard Blyer, these are guys I don't trust in. I'd like John Schreiber, and Josh Winkowski has been a good long guy, and you might need it because Garrett Whitlock, I just don't think is going to be able to lend a lot of length, and for Whitlock in his career as a starter, 4.24 ERA, giving up right around 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. When he's come out of the bullpen, less than 1 home run per 9 innings. His command is pretty much the same. His walks per 9 rate is right around 2.2 in both scenarios. Actually, it's less than 2 as a reliever, so it's even better there. I just don't understand why the Red Sox are trotting him out there as a starter. Now, he had a great start last time out, giving up 1 run in 7 innings against the Angels. I just don't know if he's going to be able to duplicate that now with the Boston Red Sox. This has been a team that's been able to do a nice job of being able to put bat to ball. They've been dealing with the injury to Adam Duvall, but you do have a top of the fold that has been very good. Justin Turner down for 1, giving you north of a 340 on base. Rafael Devers, 7 home runs, hitting at 270 entering into yesterday. Alex Verdugo hitting north of a 300. Reese McGuire has been able to move the line, but guys at the bottom of the fold like a Tristan Casas, Yu Chang, you're able to throw in there Masataka Yoshida. These guys are hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Meanwhile, for the Milwaukee Brewers, it's been very balanced. Christian Yelich just continues to not live up to his MVP form, but Jesse Winker, despite not hitting a home run this year, entered into yesterday hitting at 270. William Contreras hitting about a 300. Brian Anderson, 15 RBI, hitting at 275. Bryce Terang has been able to get on base for this team. I really like the way that the Brewers are mowing him down right now. Garrett Whitlock, I feel like, is a little bit overrated as a starter as well. So I'm willing to lay up to a minus 142 with the Brewers. Set them at a minus 143. Did set my total at a 9.1. You got a Boston Red Sox team that has been tremendous with their offense. I do think that both of these bullpens are going to experience a little bit of regression as well. So looking at the over and looking at the Brewers money line, 927, 928 on the betting board. It is the Atlanta Braves, and they play OC Houston Astros. Framber Valdez is going to be going for the Stros, and Kyle Wright hopes to be Mr. Right for the Atlanta Braves. Pretty much a pick'em game. Both teams are anywhere between minus 104 to minus 110 on the money line. Total is anywhere between 8.5 and 9. On the 8.5, over is minus 120. The under is even. On the 9, the under is anywhere between minus 120 and minus 125. The over is anywhere between even and plus 105. And I'm going to be willing to ride with the Houston Astros. I set them as a minus 140 favorite in this spot. I just really don't understand this one because Kyle Wright, he just has had not a lot of velocity to start out the season. he has been way down with that regard. Now, I will say, his last start, he looked significantly better. Some of the life that we saw from him in 2022 looked to be back on his fastball and his breaking stuff. So that is a good sign for Kyle Wright. And Kyle Wright last season, he was able to put together a tremendous record. I just don't know if those results are necessarily sustainable because Kyle Wright, I believe, led the big leagues in terms of total wins last season. He was able to pull off 21 wins. I mean, every time he took the mound, the Braves were able to do Lord's work for him. And I just take a look at this Atlanta Braves team, and I do think that they're going to be able to back them up really well. They led the National League in terms of home runs per game last season. They were 5th in the league in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis going into yesterday as well. But I do take a look at Kyle Wright. Fielding independent was more around a 3.58. His ERA was a 3.19 last season, giving up 2.5 walks per 9 innings, 8.7 strikeouts per 9. I think that he's going to be back to that form. I think he's going to be a little bit more unlucky on balls in play. It is an Astros lineup that has been rough to begin the season. They entered into yesterday 20th in the league in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, but I do think that you're going to see guys be able to pick it up. Alex Bregman was able to have an RBI yesterday. That's big, as he always gets off to rough starts. Now he's back to hitting above a 225. Mauricio Dubon has been able to move the line as he and a young guy in Corey Julks have both been able to hit above a 275. You got Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker both supplying 4 home runs going into yesterday. And for the Atlanta Braves, it's actually been a relatively top-heavy team. Marcell Ozuna, along with Eddie Rosario, just have not been able to do a lot. Kevin Pillar, not great with the bat, though. I will say, Sam Hilliard has been hitting well above a 300. That has been incredible. And for Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna Jr., all these guys providing at least a 370 on base. Olson, 5+ home runs thus far this season. Austin Riley has been able to supply 4 home runs. Acuna Jr., he has been hitting at 370, so that is incredible for the team. But Framber Valdez has always been at his best on the road. Last season, his ERA fell significantly when he was on the road rather than when he was at home. Now, with Framber Valdez, sometimes walks does get him into a little bit of a bind, but he feels like he's worked on that a little bit this year. 8 walks in 25 innings thus far this campaign. That is what you like to see, as last year on the road. 10-2 record, 227 ERA. His walks per 9 rate on the road last year was right around 3. He didn't even necessarily get a bunch of Ks, but he just does a good job keeping the ball in the yard with right around 0.65 home runs per 9 innings. The Atlanta Braves bullpen has been incredible thus far this season, as you got older guys like Kirby Yates, Nick Anderson, throwing their Jesse Chavez, holding down the fort while you're waiting on other guys to be able to get back, like Rossiel Iglesias, Colin McHugh and company. And for the Houston Astros, they were number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA last season, while the Braves, they were number 4 last season. Braves, they're still top 5 this year. Astros more around league average as far this season. You figured there'd be a little bit of regression as Ryan Stanek, Seth Martinez, Brian Abreu, Rafael Montero, all these guys had a sub-3 ERA last season. But I do think that the Astros are going to be able to rebound. I think that Framber Valdez able to do a better job than Kyle Wright. So one to lay up to a -140 with the Astros in this ordeal, and I did set my total at an 8.3. I think that Wright is starting to look a little bit better, and Framber Valdez, he has been one of the best road pitchers in all of baseball in recent years. Looking at the under and looking at the Houston Astros on the money line, and we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. St. Louis Cardinals hit the road face-off against the Seattle Mariners. Luis Castillo is going to be going for Seattle, and Miles Michaelis is on the bump for St. Louis, and St. Louis is an underdog of between +130 and +143. Meanwhile, any between -150 and -155, your number on Seattle. 7.5 to 8 is your total on the 7.5 overs between -115 and -120. The understanding between even and -105 on the 8 unders -120, and the over is even. I did set the Mariners -156 on the money line. If you're looking at their run line, say between +135 and +142. I'm going to see how the line moves a little bit overnight as to whether or not I want to go money line or run line. I set the run line to where I need at least a +132 to dive in there, so we have reached that. And with the Seattle Mariners, I set them -156 on the money line. I'm leaning much more towards the run line just because Miles Michaelis has been terrible since the All-Star break in 2022. He's got an ERA that's hovering right around 5 ever since then. And for Luis Castillo, this guy has been completely dominant to begin the season. 24 2/3 innings, and he's allowed 2 runs. He's getting about 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has allowed 4 walks in this time span. It has been nothing short of masterful. And Miles Michaelis, an 8.10 ERA to begin the season, as he has allowed at least 3 runs in each out of his 4 starts thus far this season, though only 2 of those were earned in his start against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we'll say the St. Louis Cardinals, they're picking it up with their bullpen. I've always liked Giovanni Gallegos, Genesis Cabrera. Ryan Helsley was shaky towards the back half of the 2022 season. He's been able to re-find it. Zach Thompson, someone that you're able to rely upon as well. And for the Seattle Mariners, you're a little bit banged up in the bullpen. Andres Munoz currently dealing with an injury, but Matt Brash has good electrifying stuff. Paul Sewell, Penn Murphy, they had sub-3 ERAs last season, but I do think that the Seattle Mariners are going to be able to round into form with their bats as well. I did set my total at 7.3, so I am going to be taking a look at the under just because I think that Luis Castillo goes out there and dominates. It's a nighttime game in Seattle, so it's going to play pitcher friendly as well. But for the Seattle Mariners, you do have some guys at the top that have been able to do a nice job. Jared Kelenic, Ty France, they're both hitting above a 300, and Eugenio Suarez, not known for getting on base, known a little bit more for his power. Just 2 home runs going into yesterday, but hitting at 280. Julio Rodriguez hitting at 260, but it is still a collective that is only hitting at 228. Meanwhile, for the St. Louis Cardinals, seemingly everyone not named Nolan Gorman currently has 2 home runs on this team, as Nolan Gorman, 5 home runs, hitting at 316, but you've got Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Tommy Edman, Brandon Donovan, Alec Burleson, Paul Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill, Jordan Walker, all with 2 home runs entering into yesterday. So they're all very alike, and most of these guys are actually hitting for a good average, as Donovan, Tommy Edman, Wilson Contreras, along with Jordan Walker, they're all in between a 269 to a 275, so they're moving a line, hitting a 274 as a collective, but I think that Luis Castillo is just as dominant. I think that they're going to be able to hold down the St. Louis Cardinals, who have not been able to get a lot outside of Gorman, and I do think that for Seattle, the bullpen, which has been a little bit more shaky this year, they were 6th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA last year. They were right around 10th/11th going into the game last night. You've got a St. Louis Cardinals team that they've been a little bit up and down with their bullpen as well, but I do think that they're going to be able to find it as well. They were right around 10th going to yesterday as well, so I did set my total at 7.3, looking at the under, but I do think that the Mariners get it done. I think that they get to Miles Michaelis, so looking at the Mariners at a plus 135 or greater on the run line and the under, and that will wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to one of our very own, Danny Burke here at VSiN. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at GN_41. Keep in mind, letters EM. The name does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way, that is signed an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and that means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.